We talked about it before, but this is mainly for the listeners afterwards. We are doing an event, myself and Dave Gerhardt, and that's happening on this Thursday, February 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll drop a registration link in the show notes on the podcast and on YouTube. And then if I post anything in the content, it'll go on LinkedIn. That's on Thursday. It's through Zoom. You must register. Already 400 people. I don't know if we have a max on Zoom, if the max is 1,000, so we probably won't get there. But if you want to check it out, it should be really good. Dave and I are very aligned on a lot of things. We're going to be on like 3.0 or 4.0 level content, progressive, new modern things that not a lot of people are doing, things that we see in the future. So would encourage you to check that out if you're interested. Also, for the people in the EU and the UK, you've been asking for an earlier time slot. This is the second time we're going to be doing it, and there's going to be even more after that. So stay tuned. Hope to see you there.
Hey, Chris, you're coming through a little loud.
Coming through a little loud.
And some feedback.
Ooh.
You know, in the most positive way possible. Just letting you know.
I do appreciate that. I don't know.
That's better.
Better now? I didn't change anything.
Feels a little clearer now. What
okay,
about?
I'll just stay away from the mic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Perfect. Keep going.
So sorry about that. We're going to work through the technical difficulties together. And where we're going to start tonight, I thought was interesting. I made a post on someone's, I don't even remember who it was, and I don't even remember really what they said, but I made a comment on their post, which was saying something to the effect of that creating a volume of content is impossible, so you might as well focus on good content or something to that effect. And my comment back to them was, we have a 3-person marketing team, and one of those people is me, and we create more content than most 1,000-person companies. It has nothing to do with resources, and it's definitely possible. And so what we thought was that we'd actually go through like the framework that we use to ideate, strategize, create, post-produce, and distribute content. And I'm sure this will spark some more detailed questions. I'm going to keep it relatively high level here. We might go in a couple different directions, but let's go through it. Step one, I guess let's make some definitions first, because when most people hear content strategy, they think about SEO, written blog content, what's posted in rank. Content is any piece of information, a picture, words, videos that you put in any place. SEO is a distribution channel of content. Putting it on your blog is a distribution channel. That exact same piece of content could be a LinkedIn post. It could be a letter that you send in the mail. It could be a script that you read off to someone. It could be the script that you present at an event, and it could be the script that you read on a podcast. All of those different things are distribution. And so when you think about content, we need to think about it in a much broader spectrum. And we also need to think, when we create content, about where we're going to distribute it, because where you're going to distribute it makes a huge difference to what you actually create. Okay, now that we got the definitions up front, step one is commit to it, because most people are not committed to it, which is why they never get started, or why they get started and they give up after 2 LinkedIn posts, or why they get started and they give up after they write a couple of blogs. And so you got to be committed to this, and you got to be committed for it for a sustained period of time. And so that's step one to anything that you want to do in life. We're going to get philosophical here for a minute. Anything you want to do in life, step one is to commit to it. Now, step two on a content strategy, and this is my true belief, and in all of the different people that create content and companies that create content that are successful. I'm sorry, I'm going to sneeze.
It's okay.
Suspense.
Your mic is still maybe the sound is a little still off. FYI. Just maybe turn it down. Maybe it's all of your speakers. Actually, it's not his mic.
Yeah. So let's get back to this. Number 2 is you need a subject matter expert in the stuff that your buyers care about. That is the missing piece into most companies' content strategy, and it's step 2. Okay. What we see is a lot of people that have no idea about customers, create blogs that are surface level, that makes no impact doesn't help the person, and it doesn't move the needle into whether or not they're going to buy stuff, which is why it doesn't work. You need to be able to create content around a or multiple subject matter experts in your company. Now, that doesn't have to be the biggest expert person in the market, right? Like, I think that in a lot of companies are like in one that I think about, our customer success people are super knowledgeable about our exact customer. We were selling to respiratory therapists, and all of them were respiratory therapists that were implementing the product. They were the perfect people to create content. And so, and I see this with other companies that sell into sales dev, where their SDRs are the people that are actually creating the content about the things that they're doing, right? And so this does not have to be someone at super high seniority. They just need to know the stuff and create the information, a subject matter expert that knows things that your buyers care about. Okay. Step 3 is the creation framework. Now that you have committed and you have a subject matter expert or multiple, you need a framework to create content. And so what we do is we set aside specific time, like this one. This is a prime example. It's on the calendar every week. You all are going to show up. I'm not going to let you down. So I'm here. Every week we create like an hour, 90 minutes to 2 hours of content that then be able to be post-produced and distributed. And we do this, and I'm a guest on podcasts, and we have people that are guests that come on to our show, and all of those different ways to create the base form of content. We're adding virtual events in here now. Virtual events is a missing piece. There's tons of recorded content that could be edited, post-produced, and distributed. So all those different angles, you need like basically pillars in the ground that help you create content on a consistent basis, because then you have content that you can distribute, but you also get better as you do it. And if it's not on your calendar, in my experience, it's not going to happen because something else is going to get in the way. So create time for it. The easiest way is to not have to make something up and put a deck together or things like that. Like just show up and talk about the stuff that you know, or whoever it is, like facilitate for your subject matter expert to just talk about the things that they know that your customers also care about. A Q&A is another one, a little meta here, but a Q&A is also a great one because it's exactly what the people that you're trying to get to want to know. So now that you've created all this content, you need a process to post-produce it. So to edit it, create subtitles or captions, or take a video and transcribe it into written content for a blog, or to edit it so that there's a bumper and an announcement before the podcast. You need a framework to post-produce. This is one part of the framework that can be outsourced. A lot of companies do it, especially for a podcast. The problem is that you need to do it quickly. I was on a podcast like in Q3 of last year, like September maybe, and the podcast was just published. What the hell is that? Like the stuff that we talked about is not even relevant anymore. You need to be able to post-produce and put out the content in a way that's relatively quick. And so that's a challenge with outsourcing, is lack of speed. And so you need to be able to post-produce it for long form, and then you need to be able to chop it up to whichever distribution channels you want to do. We go heavy on LinkedIn, but we also use YouTube, a podcast, and we're experimenting with a couple other channels. And that sort of leads into number 5, which is the distribution framework. So the content that we put on YouTube, and the content that we put on a podcast, and the content that we put on LinkedIn, and the copy that I write on LinkedIn is all specific to that channel. A lot of if we put it on a blog, it would be different too. It would have to be longer the written content would need to be longer form with a video underneath it if it was the same thing. But on LinkedIn, there's a character limit. So I have to be able to put everything into that specific channel in a way that fits and get the message across. And so that is essentially the content strategy that we use. And now that we have it rolling with me, we will start to implement it with others, like Megan does it. And other people post written content on LinkedIn, which is the 1.0 to the future of them doing other things. And so just to recap, step 1, commit. Step 2, identify a true subject matter expert, not an agency, not Susie, the intern, like not those people. A content creation framework. You have pillars in the ground that force you to create content in a way that's efficient and effective. Step 4, the post-production framework. You need to be able to edit it and get it into a format that can be distributed for the channel that you're going on, and then actually distribute it inside of the channel that you intend to distribute it on. And that is the high level content production framework that we use to put out more content than most 1,000 employee companies.
Can I add one thing to that, Chris?
Sure.
I would say everything you said is spot on. And I think a lot of companies or a lot of people never start because they feel like they have to have a perfect point of view or the perfect subject matter expert or the perfect distribution channel. So I would say they have to be thinking about all of those things, but there's something to be said for starting, even if you don't have all of those things fully figured out, so that you can create some momentum to figure it out along the way. So I would only just add that because I think starting is a key piece, and sometimes people get in their heads. So I would say have a strong enough foundation with those key points and know that you're going to learn and strengthen each of those as you actually just start doing it.
It's a fantastic point. And we are right at the moment, we are working on a video for LinkedIn that shows the progression of when we first started creating video content and how bad it looked, to send the message that as you keep doing it, it gets better. As you keep practicing something over 6, 12, 18, 24 or more months, it gets better. And when I did it, when I was starting, I've been doing it for 4 or 5. I've been doing a video podcast for 4 or 5 years before that, just under the brands that I worked for. Right. And so there's a lot of progress and things that you learn along the way. I've learned more over the past 12 months than we did in the first 6. Cool. That was fun. We'll save the questions based on audience feedback. By the way, the audience has spoken and we are listening. So we are actually going to go through all of the agenda topics first, and then we'll go to the Q&A. And so we did a little poll, got some good feedback. I appreciate that from all of you. Cool. So I'm going to go out of order here and cover the next, or the third one on the list, which is titled iOS 14 updates, why marketers that thrive in the unmeasurable will win. This was a real cliffhanger. I wrote this copy this morning. And so a lot of people have been mentioning this. And a lot of people's thoughts are that this is actually going to be a good thing for marketers. Lack of tracking. I actually think it's for a majority, it's the exact opposite. The reason being is that we had a level of tracking that you could do. I've been talking about custom conversions for a while that you could do. We know that that's now being underreported. The actual impact inside of Salesforce is the same or better. What's being reported inside of Facebook or LinkedIn is down somewhere between 30 and 50%. And so that level of even anonymous attribution to a sales conversion is lower. And so it's just going to push executives even harder to tell marketers the only thing that you can do is run lead gen where we can attribute it to the channel. That's really, I fear that that's what will happen through this, which is not anything different than what most people are doing right now. However, the ones, and this is not too much different than a lot of the other points that I make, the ones that can understand how people actually buy things and how true marketing actually works, which is that we need to educate people so that they understand the product, they understand the pain points that we solve, they understand the value proposition, they understand all of the things about the product and where it fits in and how it can help, which then creates consideration for when they actually decide that they might need something like that. They consider you first. That's a very easy and simplistic way to think about marketing. And so the ones that can live in the unmeasurable, and I'm living in it right now, right? Like we have plenty of customers that are living in it too, where the attributable demo conversions in November of last year inside of Facebook was 56. And month to date this month, it's 4. However, the demos inside of Salesforce that we see are higher this month than they were in November. And this is not seasonality for the one person that's going to call me out with something dumb like that. And so we're living in it. It gives you a huge advantage. Most marketers are playing with their hands tied behind their back because they don't have the tracking, and the people that actually know how to measure these things and how people actually buy stuff are going to have a huge advantage. I love this. And so I'll look forward. I'm sure that there's going to be some questions on the attribution drop, but I see this being a moving companies that don't know what they're doing on social to do less social, or to do it in even more of the wrong ways. And the people that know how to use social to do it in the right ways. And I think it'll be fewer than the ones that are doing it right now, which is awesome. And we'll just kind of jet through here. Sometimes I like the pauses. I'm not sure if you guys voted the right way, because sometimes it's nice to go back, at least for me. But this one should be fun. And I honestly have nothing planned here, so this will be fun to riff on, which is SaaS Go-To-Market. I've been thinking about this a lot, mainly because, actually, I'll finish the topic. SaaS Go-To-Market, it's time to get out a blank sheet of paper. And the reason that I've been thinking about it so much is because we're doing marketing and we're doing it well. And it actually creates a lot of it can create downstream organizational challenges, right? And so if you change your marketing model away from predictable revenue, high volume of MQLs, let's cold call a bunch of people that don't want to buy from us, to something that is more efficiency driven, that's more buyer centric, that is more actual marketing, then it breaks some of the systems downstream. It's a huge problem for enterprise companies. It's a reason why we don't have companies that are 1,000 employees plus. Really mess up their organization, because the organization's built with 100 SDRs that churn through those people for no reason. It's I just find it to be a complete waste of money. And so if you change, like what we've done up to this point is that we've made adjustments to the things that already existed. We were building a house, and when sales engagement platforms came out, it was putting new wallpaper on. We were just doing the same shit, right? And then ABM came along, and we just decided that we would redo the kitchen and put a nice marble countertop on there so it looks slick, but we didn't actually change anything fundamentally. And so organizations have been built around this. And if you change marketing, it creates a massive superpower inside of your company, because you don't need so many sales resources, right? Especially on the sales dev side, but also on the AE side, because you don't have so many people that are going through a sales process that don't become customers. And so I was talking to a company today, 10 million ARR SaaS, their benchmark is that we want to spend 60% of revenue on sales and marketing at that stage. So they have a $6 million commercial budget between sales and marketing. And 4.8 of it goes to sales and 1.2 goes to marketing. That is completely backwards in the age that we live in. And I really believe that it should be almost completely flipped. Because there's a lot of money being wasted on both of those sides, in marketing and sales, to produce metrics when there's just a small amount of people that come in and buy stuff, and your sales reps are drumming up a little bit of business too. And we, Refine Labs, are interested in kind of paving the way on this. There are other companies that have done it. I'm not saying that we're like the pioneer here, but we're interested in showing companies what other way could be done. Create content, educate buyers, wait for them to come inbound. We spend more time qualifying people about whether or not they're going to be successful with us than trying to sell them or convince them to work with us. And then we work with them. And it's a very simple process. We need very little sales resources. We do no outbound. We do not spam people. We don't put up forms with, the ebooks and all the other stuff that we talked about. We were joking about earlier in the show. And so, like, there's a real model here, especially for companies that sell 100K plus deals, where you could get, I would argue, a faster growth engine, especially when you start to hit the next tier of growth, which I'm just assuming is somewhere between 5 and 10. If you build this foundation, you actually grow exponentially, because you don't scale your sales team, you just scale your audience that you've already created, and the awareness and the brand created through that. And so it's hard for companies that already have something built that are at 30 million ARR, that have 16 SDRs and 40 sales managers and 15 people on their marketing team. It's hard to change that. But for companies that are coming up right now, and you actually are starting with a blank sheet of paper, you could start with one instead of bolting on Salesforce predictable revenue from 2004 because your VC told you to. And so I think it would create a much better long-term business to responsibly and cost efficiently acquire customers, especially for the first 3 to 5 million. Because you actually have to have a product that fits. You actually have to have a marketing model that works. A lot of companies will have ridiculous CAC at that time period because they raise money and they don't know how to sell it. And so their CAC will go through the roof, but they don't care. And then what happens is you have this bad behavior created from 0 to 5 million ARR, which continues to follow you for the rest of the way. And so those are some of my initial thoughts. What I would do, and what we actually work. I mean, making these changes inside of an established company would take years. This is not just a rip and replace type of thing. And so if we were going to do this with an established company, it's fix marketing first. Cut out all the garbage leads. Number one, cut out all the garbage leads. That's going to save your SDRs a ton of time. It's going to save your marketing team a ton of money. Change your marketing metrics. Change your actual marketing execution. Drive high intent leads that become customers at 7, 8, 10, 12% from raw lead to customer. Figure out how you can drive more of those through your funnel with the same conversion metrics. Get that figured out, aka fix marketing. And then while all that stuff is happening and the SDR resources don't need to be spending all of their day calling ebook downloads that don't want to talk to you, they can start to figure out a better way to do sales dev. And so when they go and look for a better way to sales dev, they could take the exact same contact information that's coming through an ebook, source it on ZoomInfo, and call those people. What you'd find is that doesn't work that well, but it works the same, if not better, than the ebook download. You could get a tool like 6 Cents with Intent. You could do that. More than likely, as you move down this model, you realize that you have too many of them. And so you shrink the team. It's sad, but it's not a bad thing. It's a good business decision. So you shrink the team. We could go back to what I had talked about a couple episodes ago, where if you were in a completely redo biz dev, you might just get rid of the whole team and you would move to a full cycle model with experts that understand your customers. That is most likely not the profile of an AE that you see today. It could be much more like a subject matter expert paired with like a sales engineer solutions consultant. And then you have marketing that's driving high intent leads that convert at 10% to customers. And you have an ability to scale that up, and you're creating content. And then your account executives, quote unquote, are creating content, closing very quickly the leads that marketing is producing at a super high rate, and producing some type of content that becomes a new modern business development engine. And you have a completely different go-to-market approach with most likely, I would say, at least 30% less people on the commercial team. And so that 30% can then be redeployed to customer success, who has no budget and nothing, you know what I mean? That team doesn't have a lot of things to get stuff done when retention and customer success is the most important in a recurring revenue model business, right? So it could go to customer success. It could go to innovating on your product faster. It could go to other infrastructure inside of your company, like changing your SaaS billing system to something that's better, or whatever you want to do. And so if you weren't spending 60% of revenue on sales and marketing, imagine all the other stuff that you could do to make your company better. And so that's how I see all of those different changes cascading over a 2 to 5 year period of time for a company that's already established.
What about a brand new company? Because we were talking about this the other night, and starting from scratch. Like, what if you're going to start a company today? And my thesis that I was explaining to you, it's like, everyone is like, I need to raise a bunch of money, hire as many salespeople as possible. And those are the priorities they make. And if you take a step back, it's like, what's your idea? Do you even have a good idea? Are you solving a problem that matters? Can you actually get 50 customers? If you can get 50 customers, then can you get the right feedback to validate that your idea is a good one and actually achieve some semblance of product market fit? And I would actually say hire customer success people, maybe even before marketing, to take care of those first 50 customers. And then once you hit that product market fit milestone, or maybe not complete product market fit, but way closer than most of the startups today, then you can think about raising money. Then I think you should prioritize marketing and brand and demand. And then you can start pouring gas on the fire and hiring sales. So if you start from not an established company, but from a founder that has an idea, I think that's like the true order of operations. If you actually care about solving a real problem, building a sustainable company, and doing right by your customers.
Pretty good. There's a little bit of an angle that I would debate with, but I agree with it in theory. It's different. Rand Fiskin talked about it on our podcast, about companies getting further along before they take on money. And even a lot of people that are in the VC world say that, because you save so much in equity as a founder if you can get to 5 or 10 million ARR without raising money. And so some interesting thoughts. It'll be interesting to see how this all develops over time. And I'm interested to see it. And I'm also interested in seeing all of the questions that came out of this. So let's do that.
Yeah, I've got a few questions. I'm going to bring on one of our OGs, Ashley, to kick us off. We have a few live that we'll take and then some from before that we'll definitely get to. Ashley, you on?
Cool.
Yes. Hi.
Hey. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Happy Pizza Day.
Thank you.
Heart-shaped pizza day.
Yes, we got a heart-shaped pizza. We're very excited. So I have a question that kind of follows up with this, and it merges the discussion that I joined in on, which was video content creation and distribution. But the question is, if you have like a SaaS freemium model with a new vertical, like an enterprise that you've added. So you've got freemium and you've added that enterprise, and you're trying to achieve like product qualified leads and then target those people with educational content about the enterprise features. How do you target them? Like, do you use like Amplified or Amplitude or Heap or something like that to send those leads into your CRM? And
so
what's the method?
Let me just make sure I understand you. So there's this product over here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And enterprise customers are coming in freemium.
Yes.
And then they're doing some type of thing like putting their credit card in or doing certain usage or inviting certain times, which deems them a PQL.
Right.
And then what do you want them to do from there?
Realize the benefits of the enterprise version. So support them, help them be successful on freemium to the point where they're learning about the enterprise. So I realize you can do that within the app with pathways, but then how do you take those people and target them on social or elsewhere? I know you'd be emailing them, but.
So I'll give you a couple of ideas. First off, this is a challenge with product led, right? Like companies want to be product led until they get a bunch of enterprise companies as a PQL that are on free. And then they decide that they also want to be sales led. And so it's really funny. So a couple different ideas. You mentioned in product is probably the number one. I would then move to email, which should be easily segmented. The next thing that I would do is I would have whoever those people are tagged inside of whatever marketing automation CRM system you're using. I would build an account list off of that, and I would then run targeted ABM campaigns to those, not those people, those accounts. on that. And then lastly, if you want to, you should probably introduce a sales motion, and you should cherry pick the companies based on whatever you deem as the right ones to do it. And then you should have someone reach out. And a lot of companies choose to do that with sales. It would kind of be interesting. I've never tried this, so I can't speak to whether or not it works, but I think it would kind of be interesting to think about it, a customer success person doing that action.
I was thinking about something y'all talked about earlier in the year when events were like on the horizon at some point, and doing small group events with happy customers on the enterprise level so that they can mix with those product qualified leads.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that would play virtually. Yeah, I'm not sure how that would play virtually. I think it's worth a shot. It definitely has worked for us in person. So I think you could figure out a way to make it work virtually. It just might be a little different. You might have to just, what I'm seeing a lot, and this is sort of off topic, but I want to get it. What I'm seeing a lot is that companies take whatever happened physically in person and then just copy it digitally, right? Like whatever SDRs were doing cold calling, and they just decided that now that digital's open, they'll just do the same shit digitally. Virtual events, like, oh, we're going to cancel our virtual event and we're going to take the exact same programming with the exact same stuff and just shove it into a virtual event instead of rethinking the whole thing. And this just goes into the idea of when things change, you actually have to look at it with a new lens. And so that was more for the listeners than for you, but on the virtual side, you might have to tweak it a little bit in order for it to drive the outcome that you want.
Agreed. Thank you.
You got it. Another thing that I've been thinking about, this is more for the listeners as well, is a lot of companies continue to talk about this as product-led growth. And what product-led growth actually means is product and marketing-led growth. There's very few products that self-acquire new users. There's very few. Calendly, there's a couple other ones that have recurring growth loops where their users bring new users in. But for the most part, when you have a product-led offering, which is a self-serve freemium for the most part, you need to have marketing to get new people into the product. And so you need both of those things together in order to be really successful in a product-led offering, in my view. And I don't know why people don't give marketing enough credit in that motion, because you really do need it.
Anna had a great question to follow up on what we were talking about earlier. Anna, I'm going to bring you on. You on?
Hi, everybody. I'm cooking, so this will be
nice.
Quick. I'm always basically making dinner and in a rush, but listening to you. So just so you know.
Awesome. Great to have you here.
My question's a quick one. So we're always talking about, especially during COVID times, like with your marketing, educate. That is what you need to do to get people to be interested in what you have to offer, and then and buy your stuff, right? But my question to you is, what about taking more of a challenging approach, like you're challenging outdated assumptions, which is really what you guys are doing with this virtual event every week, and with your content too. How do you think about that? Do you do both things? Do you educate people more so than you challenge people? Do you how do you think about content, and whether you just educate versus challenge people's outdated thoughts?
I would argue that challenging is education. So I actually don't see them as too much differently. We're challenging the things that are happening right now, and meanwhile educating them on why it should be challenged, right? And so when I look at this, if I try and give you a framework on education or challenging, the first step is intent. And so a lot of people say that they're educating people, but it's a back-end sales pitch, right? Like they expect something out of the people consuming the content, which is how we've got to the ebook flow that is somehow still happening. And so it's one, what is your intent? I have zero intent for any of you to ever become a customer, right? Like I literally have none. And so intent. And then whether it's challenging or educating, I think that a lot of companies have been successful challenging. It's a core like strategic narrative framework, right? Like drift, forms suck. You should use chatbots instead. I'm sure that there are plenty, but that's the first one that comes to mind for me. And so the reason that our challenging works is because it's true, right? Like that's the reason that it works. And when we challenge the details of the things that we see across a very large set of customers, right? Like when I see the same thing in 25 Salesforce instances in a row, I know that a lot of companies that look like that are dealing with the exact same thing. And I know the numbers in huge detail. Like I know the details so well that they can feel it, which is why the content works really well, right? And if me right now decided, we're at 20 employees, I don't need to be building Facebook ads anymore. I don't need to be managing these customers. I don't need to be in those meetings. In 6 months, the content wouldn't be as good because I'm not in the details anymore, right? And so being in the details allows this content to be really successful because the details are visceral, right? Like I know down to the 0.1 percentage point what the win rates are of certain tactics for companies, and I'm very close every time. And so I think that if I'm trying to kind of get back to it, like I think that you can do both at the same time. It's the key is one, knowing that it's happening and knowing it at a deep level so that those people feel it, right? Like it's different if I was just like, MQLs are bad, right? Like it wouldn't resonate. The level of detail is the reason that it resonates. So know it at a very deep level. And then the missing piece for a lot of people is on distribution, right? Like I get that you're creating educational content, but it doesn't matter if nobody that you care about sees it. And so I would say that a majority of companies miss on distribution if they didn't already miss an intent and subject matter expertise in detail. So the companies that do have that stuff figured out and are writing good blog posts that nobody finds are missing the point of distribution. So intent, subject matter expertise, proper distribution, I think is a good framework. Any follow-up? Okay, I think she's on mute.
Oh, sorry, Anna. I'll bring you back on for a sec.
You're in.
Oh. Okay. No follow-up. I just want to say thank you. I got to go get the fish out of the oven.
Yeah, go get it.
Enjoy dinner.
Enjoy it. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
The questions keep coming. I'm lining people up. We're going to bring Helen on next. We were DMing on LinkedIn earlier. She's got a great question for you. Helen, you're on?
I am. Hello.
Hello. Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you guys use product pages, like how you drive traffic there, when you drive traffic there, how do you embed like persuasion, or if you do it all in those pages, and I guess just basically how to build a page that isn't going to oversell, but help get the customer to the point where they, does this brand and this product, is it in alignment with my needs, like, as quickly as possible. We do have, it's a freemium model, so we're trying to get people into like the 14-day free trial.
Mm-hmm.
Super hard audience too. It's legal tech, so lawyers.
Interesting.
That's
be fun.
One way to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, that would be fun. To try and figure out. So on a product page level, I think a lot of the companies that we work with have thought about it in a different way, which is the type of solution, not necessarily like how the product is packaged, but having a specific value proposition instead of a like full-on product page that covers a lot of different things, because a lot of our customers are single product companies, right? So the homepage can cover a lot of the single product stuff, and then you're getting into the details on the solutions or specific verticals type of pages. And so in legal tech, let's say one of the features is, store all of your contracts automatically electronically, right? And so that's one of the features. And so people, and then so inside of that page, you're going to talk about the value proposition. You're going to talk about there needs to be a product marketing messaging framework hierarchy that structures that page, right? We don't spend a lot of time personally with our customers on that because it's sort of a given that they should have that stuff figured out already. And so we'll provide details like, hey, like this page is converting the worst. Maybe you should work on it, right? Like we provide those type of details, but not necessarily like onto the actual copywriting for them. And then if we have this thing, which is store all of your legal contracts electronically, automatically, then we're going to look inside of Google for, contract management software or specific words where that solution matches well. And then we're going to drive people to that product page. And then if we're going to run other like paid channels like Facebook or LinkedIn, the creative and the content is going to talk about that specific feature. Right. And so it's not going to be a high level, we make legal tech. It's going to be, store your contracts automatically, electronically, if that's the value proposition. And it's going to link them to that product page. And then perhaps there's a way to convert, toward the bottom of the page or something. And so
wait, maybe I'm not understanding correctly. So are you suggesting that there would be a page for each sort of like feature for every like segment of audience? Like some people might be drawn to the fact that we do have like cloud-based storage, right? Some people would be more drawn to the fact that you can populate documents in bulk. You can do them all at once. Other people would be more interested in the fact that there's a full Zapier integration. And so you can set up a custom workflow. So would you have a different page for each one of those features?
I think within reason, it's partially an SEO strategy too, right? Like, so a lot of those things initially start as SEO and then paid search, and then you can drive it through. So it's more of a integrated strategy, I would say.
Okay.
And so, but then you just need to make sure that the menu doesn't become a Frankenstein, right? And so like the main nav cannot get messy. We need that to be guide buyers through. And so that's the way that I would think about it. So whatever your core, you must have a core 3 to 6 value propositions, and those become the main ones. And then perhaps there are other ones for search, and we use them as tests and things like that. But that's sort of the high level framework about what we do there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Cool.
Blake had a quick follow-up on this topic. How many features do you typically look to market? Are there too many or too few, too specific? I don't know if there's a general rule of thumb.
I don't think that there's a general rule of thumb. We move through, there's some features that work better at certain times of the year, right? I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head that's not from a customer, so give me a second. You're selling K-12 software and it's about to be summer break, right? Like maybe there's a specific feature that makes it easier for people to, go on to summer break or whatever and get paid, or I don't know what the details are. I'm making this stuff up on the fly, but, and so perhaps doing that campaign in May would be a good idea. And it might not be a good idea to do that in December. And so there's certain features that might have specific time periods that make sense to market them. And then from there, it's just kind of like understanding your audience and what's resonating. We're constantly testing new features, but we typically have like start to not fall back, but kind of repackage and re-message the top 3 or 3 to 5. Because it's not only about the destination page, especially if you're using paid content, paid media and social, it's also about how the creative messages the product. And so there's a ton of different angles. Like we go onto a product page for one of our customers, there's like 7 H1s and there's a lot of subtext, right? And so like you can pull out this specific H1 and shorten it and then use it. And then you can pull out this subtext and use it as subtext or as copy. And so there's a lot of different angles to communicate the exact same feature.
Our good friend Charlie from the UK is back. He has 2 questions, and I told him that I would allow it.
What's up, Charlie? You get 2 questions because you're a warrior up late.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, guys. Really excited again. Yeah, so it's been a lot happening for me. I heard you were having an episode with Dave, so I obviously shaved my head in tribute to that. But, no, I'm joking. But no, so Okay, my two questions are related to, I guess, the new developments that have happened with me. So I got my first freelance client, which was amazing. I want to ask you about managing that relationship, right? Which is, you espouse such a strong philosophy of demand gen, but surely some of your clients aren't as like marketing woke as you in terms of like being kind of on it, like surely sometimes you get friction from your clients, right? So what do you do if a client's just asking you to stack MQLs? Like in that situation, they're asking you to do stuff that you know is not the best.
Yeah. So especially early on, this is a challenge, right? Like when we had 2 customers, you do get some of these things. We still get it from time to time, right? We're doing a lot better job inside of because we don't need to take on every customer. We have a lot of people that want to work with us. And so like now we're doing a much better job aligning philosophically. Hey, you're not going to see your dashboard light up in the first month. If you need that, you shouldn't work with us, right? And like literally just telling them that you are not going to get a trillion leads out of this. If you want that, you should go find somebody else. And so doing a better job, just being very direct up front to do that. And then like if there's a customer that for whatever reason has been working with us for 3 months and wants to get back on the MQL hamster wheel, we tell them that they should find someone else to do it for them. And so over time, we've gotten to a place where it's a huge burden on our team to do stuff that we know doesn't work to appease a customer. I would rather stay true to our philosophy and our model because long term it is better for everyone. But in terms of management, right? Like they don't just come in and they're like, hey, we actually want 10 billion MQLs, so go start doing that. We talk through it with them. Right. And you don't win all of these, but we talk through it with them. When you started working with us initially, the reason that you started working with us is because you had 10,000 MQLs and you got 6 customers. And 6 customers wasn't enough for you. And so we decided that we're going to focus on the demo requests instead, because over at the demo request, you got 1,000 demo requests and you got 72 customers. And so when we built the model 3 months ago, what we said is that we only need to increase demo requests by 50% through this year. And you're going to grow your revenue by whatever, 35%, which is going to help you hit your growth target. And for marketing's contribution, you're going to hit your target. And at the moment, it's up by 22%, and we are on track to hit that. So why are we trying to change right now? So it's about having a logical conversation that is rooted in business metrics, I think is really the key, because opinions aren't going to work. And so I think it's number one, understand, right? Like whatever they're asking you to do, it's like understand why do you want to do it that way? Help me understand so that we're on the same page. It's a really important step. And then try and work through with them to tie it back to what they care about. So at the beginning, I try to always deeply align with how the people that I'm working with are measured. And it's different with the CMO or the director of digital or the performance marketing manager, right? And so I try to figure out what all of those people are measured on so that if we ever have one of these conversations, I can tie it back to what they care about. And then try and work through to a place where you move in the direction that you want. The luxury that we have now that I didn't have when I had 2 customers is that we can tell a customer to leave if we don't want them. And so at one customer, you don't have that. You always have the option, right? But it's not really the same. And so those are some ideas, but would be happy to answer a follow-up on this one.
I think it's hard to ask a follow-up about probably putting you in a position where you're going and doing
you can ask, and if I don't want to answer it, I'll tell you.
Well, I mean, like, have you ever got to a stage where you feel like you're pushing the client too far? Like, where's the line between kind of educating them into your opinion and a point where you're just kind of like, why are you hiring me as a specialist if you're not going to listen to me? Like,
yeah. And so the key is to figure all this stuff out before they become a customer. That's the answer. It's something that we've gotten much, much better at. To be frank, companies that don't believe in what we're doing are going to go somewhere else because we're more expensive. right? And we're more expensive because we do more than the alternatives that they're looking for. And we actually align to pipeline and revenue outcomes unlike anyone else. And so the customers that don't value that part of what we do are going to find someone for 50% cheaper that's going to get them MQLs. And it's like, so when we talk in the sales process and companies are like, you're too expensive, it's an immediate for us. It says, you're probably not the right customer then, because we have customers and I know how much revenue they generate and I think they should be paying us twice as much.
Cool. Okay,
it's okay to break up with a customer too. Like if they already are a customer and it's not working out, honestly, it's sometimes better to just be proactive and address the elephant in the room and initiate like parting ways in a way that's going to work well for both sides. So like there is a way to do that very amicably and nicely and actually end the relationship on a positive note, even if you as the vendor are initiating the breakup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to be clear, this client I've got is absolutely amazing. Like she's so lovely. Like it's just that I'm spending so much time like going really in depth into like explaining what is quite abstract, like marketing theory, like largely rehashing stuff that I've heard from you, Chris.
Content. The answer in that case is content. So, and it doesn't have to be the content for them, but if you think about doing this in the future, the reason that it helps us is because when someone comes in to talk to me the first time, I've never met them, I've never heard of their company, they say things the way that I already talk because they've listened to the podcast, right? And so by creating content, you actually attract people that are already bought into the way that you look at things.
That is really, really smart, actually. That's
a
great answer. Okay, I don't want to take up too much time, so I can, if I'm still allowed to get on my second question.
Yeah, of course. Let's do it. We're here.
Right. So I've got my first client, super excited. I'm doing loads of web development and I've just got completely like blocked in copywriting out of nowhere. Like I'm just sitting at these web pages I built, just trying to think of like what to write. And I've never had this before. I used to be such a creative writer when I was an undergrad, like liberal arts. So what I wanted to ask you is about like lifestyle processes, I guess, because I kind of bought a book. I bought a book my mate recommended called like The Artist's Way, which is quite spiritual. Like I'm not necessarily that into that side of it, but it's been getting me to write 3 pages of just random stuff every morning. And it made me think perhaps like, what is your secret, Chris? Like, do you have like a routine? You wake up, you have your notepad, are you like filling pages of stuff with copy? Like, you know,
it happened to me today. It happens a lot, right? Like I sit down, I'm usually done with the gym and at my laptop at 6:30. And so I'm there and then I have this time blocked and sometimes I can go in there and I can have the entire copy written by 6:35 and then I can go and do a bunch of stuff and then I post it somewhere between 8 and 9. And sometimes that happens. But this morning I sat here from 6:35 until like 8 a.m. and I had 1 sentence written and I really wanted to post the video that I posted. And so my like triggers in that point, especially when the deadline's there, like I'm gonna post every day, right? And I'm gonna post it by 9 because after that I'm not gonna be able to get it out. And so I'll typically walk my dog. And so I took my dog for a walk this morning and I wrote the entire post in my notes app while I was walking her. Like right when I got outside, it worked. So like changing your environment is a good one for creativity. Sometimes I take a shower, to be honest, and that works really well too. And then lastly, because I have a deadline, like I don't know, there's something psychological. I don't know what the term is, but when there's a deadline and you're under pressure, you actually you get it done somehow. And so those are 3 tricks that I have. Like I know that 9 a.m. is the deadline. If I'm not there by 8, I usually take my dog for a walk. She wants to go outside and hang out anyway. And then the shower becomes the other one.
Cool. Thanks for that. Yeah, you've answered my questions
cool.
fantastically.
Yeah, and I do journaling and other things, but in terms of like specifically copywriting, those are 3 things that usually work for me.
But you do journal, so you do just try and write your other thoughts. Because the last question I ask is this book was basically saying as you write down your other thoughts, you sort of then outlet, and then that means when you sit down to write copy, you've kind of got all the other stuff out. And flow easier. Have you ever found that?
I'm sure that there's an effect on copy, but for me, it helps me think very high level. Like it helps creativity in terms of like vision for the business and key like major decisions, and that's what it helps me with. I'm sure it helps with copywriting too. I just don't use it for that specific purpose.
I think it touches what you mentioned, Charlie. Like, I think sometimes your brain is too busy, and if you have a block, just sometimes getting whatever is in your mind on paper just creates space for you to then have that creativity or that spark that you need. So I actually am a big fan of just stream of consciousness writing, maybe less for what you write is actually what you use, but you're just creating space in your mind so that you can actually get to that creative moment that you're searching for.
Yeah, this is exactly it. I was writing stuff about like the Battle of Agincourt, just complete rubbish. And then I got out afterwards and the copy was just coming out. I was like, what is this? Anyway, cheers guys.
Cheers. Great to see you. Look forward to hearing the update soon.
Matt, I'm bringing you on next. You had a couple questions.
Okay.
There's a few Matts, so you're going to be surprised.
Is anyone surprised? Is anyone surprised when there's another Matt?
Good to see you again. What's up?
Hey, back in the kitchen. So, it's a good Tuesday night.
It's good.
So the first question I asked was related to where you started on the content production stuff. There was one that I didn't, there was a part of the framework I didn't catch, and maybe I just missed it, but how do you decide what topics to produce content around? Like, is that the SME? And so for context, I have one SME in our company, and he's a godsend, and spent a bunch of time typing up this whole mind map of topics for webinars that we could do, and like the themes that they fit under and the topics and the angles. And like, that's great, but I don't know that any of this is actually speaking to, like, he is in the industry, so theoretically he can sort of represent that, right? But like, I don't know that any of this, like, this is a ton, and I have to decide what webinar we're doing next month. So I have to pick from all this, but also I have to figure out like what's going to align with like the like that arc of awareness, like problem consideration, solution consideration all the way through. And like, just interviewing the SME doesn't seem like it adds that sort of like angle that I'm going to need to like get this whole train rolling.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. People will either look for keywords to decide what topics, or they'll make a mind map or some type of thing, which is often what they wish people wanted to know, not what they actually want to know. The key to knowing what to talk about is to listen, because all I do right now is just listen to your questions. I'm on LinkedIn. I read 100 comments every day from people on my posts. I look at what other people are saying. I have opinions on them. And so just by listening, I have an endless stream of different things to talk about that are relevant. And then the last thing is that because I interact with a lot of companies as a, demand leader, like I'm in their 2021 planning, I see what's going on. I talk to other people, and I'm going through campaigns. I'm understanding how their team thinks about strategy. And so for all of those different reasons, I don't necessarily need to think about what to say because it's always there. The last thing that I will urge you to is do not think about it like a funnel. When you're doing some type of content like this, it doesn't need to map to some buyer stage journey, right? Like if we could try and analyze what buyer stage journey does this one fall into, none of them, right? When you're doing content like this, it's above the funnel. Like there is no funnel. I'm doing whatever is best for you, right? Like, and so it's another mindset switch, is to forget about the funnel, forget about how someone moves through your process, because oftentimes if you're thinking about how they move through your process, they can feel it or they're not interested. And so when you remove that and you listen, you can set up topics that people actually want. And so I would go Facebook groups are coming back, right? Hear a lot about Facebook groups. I'm in a couple, like people are using them. And so inside, if there's a Facebook group for legal tech, I'll just use that example, right? Like it wouldn't be legal tech, but it would be like some type of lawyer, right? Like contracts administrator. Let's do that one. There's a Facebook group for contracts administrators. There's questions all over there. Get into the group, understand what they're saying, look at the comments. People are asking questions. And then one of the questions is, should I use Helen's tool or should I use someone else? And then you're like an unbiased source. And so your webinar could be this one versus this one. Which one should you choose? We integrate with both. maybe don't do that one because you would definitely piss off at least one of your partners. So, but the point is to listen. Whether there's places where people are talking about those things, you need to find where they are. You need to be in the market, and by listening, you know what to talk about. I did it. I've been doing this for a very long time. I did this in 2016. We were selling to emergency medicine physicians. I didn't know anything about them. I wasn't the subject matter expert. I was just the one that was architecting and getting people to show up for the video podcast, you know what I mean? And figuring out what topics they wanted to talk about. And so I would just listen to what people were saying. I would go out and talk to them. I would understand that they thought one way about this clinical trial and other people thought one way. And I would get two experts together and they would talk about what they thought, right? I think Matt's on mute. Matt always gets stuck on mute.
Sorry, I'll bring you back. Got like the control panel here. A lot going on. Matt, you're back.
Oh, good. No, yeah, that makes sense. So then you take that angle, that research to the interview with the SME, right? Like that's where it dovetails back into your 5-step.
Yeah, sort of. We were talking more about a high level framework about how to create content, not necessarily the strategy about what to talk about, but it's like it's a never ending cycle. Listen, create, post produce, distribute, listen, post produce, create, distribute, right? And it takes a little bit of a while to get it going, but it feeds itself now. I never need to think. And then at some point, if you create good information, you can get, and this is literally true. In order to start creating the first pieces of content, people would send me a message that said, hey, I have questions about Facebook ads. Can I have 15 minutes of your time? And I said, definitely. It's a one-person Q&A where I can create content. And so if there's even things like that, set them up with your SME and just record it.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Thanks for riffing on that.
Cool. Yeah, that was a good one. Good to see you, Matt. Enjoy the kitchen.
Thanks.
All right. It's Bob time.
He's back.
He's back. We're on the YouTube journey with you. Trying to unmute you. You on here?
I'm here. How you doing?
Good. Good to see you, Bob.
Hey, appreciate it. I'll give you some rapid fire metric questions from YouTube. So
cool.
We can jump through them, and then I have a interesting messaging question. Maybe you could answer it real quick. So on YouTube, first questions first. Is there something like frequency on Facebook that you look at to tell us it's time to pull the ad?
There's not a frequency to pull the ad, but you can set frequency caps. And so I set frequency caps because I don't want to annoy people. And so it's normally 2 impressions per week is what I set it at.
Got it. And then that's in the settings somewhere there, and that set or something.
Mm-hmm.
I will look for frequency caps. I did not see it. Perfect. That's why I asked.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the view percentage, is there like a benchmark that you look at that you say this is a good view percentage, like this ad is performing well?
Yeah, I saw this. I was going to comment and then I got distracted and I never got back to it. So it would be good to answer this. There's no benchmark on this. It depends on the length of the video, right? Your view percentage is going to be a lot higher if your video is 15 seconds versus if it's 6 minutes. And so the length of the video matters in view percentage. The targeting matters. The first 5 seconds matter. How good the video actually is. And so I wouldn't look at that. Like we have one, I was looking at it before we came in here because I thought you were going to ask this question. And we have a video that's super narrow targeted. Like I've been running it for 2 days and it's gotten 12 impressions, right? Like it's very narrow. And our view rate's 85%. And so, but it's only been distributed to 12 for 12 impressions, 6 people for 12 impressions and hit the frequency cap. And so I don't think that there's a benchmark for this. I think you need to kind of triangulate several other metrics to understand, like we want view rate, but also what is the cost per click?
Right.
What are the people What are the people doing after they click? What is the click-through rate? What's the conversion rate? Putting those types of things and then looking at the view percentage, 25, 50, 75, 100 is another interesting way to look at where people are dropping off. And so that's some of the things that I'll look at, but oftentimes it's just, is the video good and how good is the targeting?
Got it. So on top of that, just make sure I'm looking at this the right way. When you're looking at the audience retention, I'm running a 1 minute ad and a 2 minute ad. And at like the 30-second mark, I have like 10% audience retention. And that's the number of views it's telling me I have. So my assumption was that 30-second mark was the trigger for it to call it a view. So am I looking at that the right way, that I had 10,000 impressions, 1,000 views, and at that 30-second mark, it said 10%. So is that audience retention, impression, or views?
When it says 25, 50, 75, 100, the percentage is how many people got that far.
I'm not even seeing that graph.
You might have to, I'll show you offline how to set that up. I'll shoot you a little video or something. But you can set up a different view that basically it'll show you how far people are getting through from in quarters of the video. So maybe we're not talking about the same thing, but like if it, for instance, in this, it would say at the 75% mark and the metric is 10%, it means only 10% of the people got that far.
Right. I thought it was like basically at 5% at the 1 minute mark meant that 5% of the 10,000 impressions, which would be 500 views, made it to the full length of the video. Because 10% was at the halfway mark.
I'm not sure. Yeah, we're gonna have to look at that in more detail together.
Got it. That's okay. I see Matt in the chat bot telling me he was supposed to help me with this before. I'm calling out Matt. He got too busy. So I'll jump. You definitely answered some of the questions. So I certainly appreciate it. Obviously, the more you do this, the more questions I have, right? In terms of messaging, I have an interesting messaging question, and you were just talking about. So, if in terms of launching something brand new, right? Totally disruptive. A lot of the comments, there's a lot of negativity on my Facebook ads, right? So
just to be clear for everyone, this is not for you, but it's for everyone. There's negativity on every Facebook ad. That's right. how it works, right? And so like it happens with every single customer. It doesn't matter who you're targeting. It's just the dynamics of the platform. 5 years ago, ICP buyers would leave 100 comments on our ads. Now we get 6 spam comments that are negative and oftentimes like inappropriate. And so it's just, you need to moderate, hide, or delete those. And it's a nature of playing the game.
Yeah, it's totally that way. So I'm combative too. So you don't even want to know, like I'll go at them because they're doctors who are,
at least they're cutting. Most of ours are complete spam.
Oh, no. So this is my target market and they're just offended or threatened by what.
No, so I did this before. So we were selling a disruptive medical device in 2016. Then people had been using the gold standard for 45 years. And we had a product that was disrupting that gold standard that they loved, that they learned about in school 20 years ago, that they were happy about. And we were over here saying, this product does just as good and it has way less side effects for your patient. Maybe you should try it. Right. And you would get a lot of different comments. You would be, I don't believe that clinical study, that, this would never work for this reason. And it is a incredible opportunity to understand what people's objections are. It's a market research tool. You understand the objections. And then for me at that time, it was go in objection, like this part of the clinical trial, I don't believe. Go to the subject matter expert. Hey, we got this question. Can you write up a 4-paragraph statement on it so that I can post it on the blog so that next time someone says this, I can send them there. And every time I got an objection, if I did, I would have either a piece of content to send them to say, hey, thank you very much. We wrote up something about this. Actually, if you want to look at it, it's right here. And if I had somewhere to send them, I would send them there. And if I didn't have something, it would be an indicator to go and make it. And that became also a sales enablement tool because then we had content for objections that were getting presented in sales conversations.
Sure. Okay. You basically answered. I mean, I was curious about whether or not I should be modifying my message or like, I'm okay with drawing out the haters because I only need 0.25% penetration. Right. So I'm not worried about that, but I was curious if you would tamp down the messaging to draw out less of the negativity or not worry about.
People are going to hate on everything. People hate on my stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like some people are just not in a good place and would rather say negative things and be mean to people to try and drag people down than to just pass by it.
Yep.
And so like when you create content for the internet, it's part of the thing. And it's just like, understand that this person's not in a good place. So what they're saying, unless what they're saying is right. Like there's times where I've posted something and I'm like, that person sounded like a dick, but they're actually right. So like, I use it as a learning tool. And so that's the way that I look at it. People are always going to project their feelings onto other people on the internet.
Got it. Hey, certainly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I got my first really bad negative comment, I kind of thought I made it.
It's a sign.
It's a badge of honor.
Seriously.
So I think they
come in waves.
Sign,
Bob. comes in waves.
For that.
I got one recently. My response was, we'll always be here. Every time you want to split hairs, we'll be here because we're saying the same thing.
For that.
Let's keep it going.
Definitely. We got through all our live questions. Anyone still on that wants to come on, let me know. But we had a couple really interesting questions that were submitted in advance. Oh, wait, Carl, I'm going to come around to you first. I will have you come on because I don't think we had it. So give me a second. Switching gears, prioritizing the live crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a couple questions I do want to ask because they're good ones.
Okay. Yeah, I want to get to them. I'm feeling good.
Carl, you on?
Yep, sounds good. Hey, Chris.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you. Long time, first time, I guess.
Your name looks very familiar, Carl. I know you.
It was actually, I really needed to get on live today because so tomorrow I'm submitting a part of our budget. And one thing I asked our VP today was, we're putting a lot of money into paid media, especially paid search. And I know a lot of that's wasted. I actually ran a test for like 3 months where we cut generic search, really focused our paid social, really focused on like creating demand.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, our SELs skyrocketed, our costs went down, and it was like, everyone was pleased.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know like this kind of was on my last question about like international expansion. And now I'm like, well, there's other activities that I want to do, but 95% of our budget is all tied up in paid media. And our executives are really, really, really supportive. So I guess the question is, if we didn't spend any money on paid media, or we were asking for additional money, what other marketing activities, and I'm very open to pushing the boundaries, because that's essentially what I'm looking to do, is what kind of activities could we do outside of paid media, or even if I wanted to start cutting some of our paid media. And the only reservation that I got was, we have a double SAL SQO target for next year. And I think the worry is like, hey, just as long as that pipeline and just as long as that SAL is maintained, yeah, we're open to anything. So what would your recommendations be?
Cool. So let me just make sure I understand you. Your goal is double, or they're the same?
Double.
Yeah. So I'm dealing with this with the company. Exact same thing from Q4 to the following Q4 20 to Q4 21.
Yeah.
SQO targets marketing source double. And so we're going through this, but first I actually have a couple questions for you. First, what camera are you using? Because you look great.
Oh, this is my actual real camera. So it's like, it's not a webcam. It's like it's a Canon R5.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, what type of company? Like, where's the stage? Where are you at?
So we're ACV 130K. We are pretty much past C.
Okay.
C round.
Yep.
I think ARR.
How many employees? Or ARR employees. Yep. Okay.
Looking to double that in about 3 years too.
Cool.
So it's pretty big and it's growing. So everyone's pretty excited, but like, I was like, yeah, we got to stop being on that paid media train because it's just going to keep rising. So I'm like, but some of the things
you're
that
going to have to, if your SQO targets are doubling, you're going to want to stay on the paid media train.
like continue to increase our paid media.
I mean, you're going to hit a point of diminishing returns. I'm not sure if we hit that yet. Do you have a sense about what your cost per SQO is between different sources in the business?
Our cost per SQO for anything related to paid search is around $2,500.
Yep, which is really good for 130K deals, depending on the funnel metrics afterwards. I guess SQO is good, so that's really good. Because I would take a couple angles here. The first one is I would look at all the stuff coming through the website, blended costs across all paid media channels. And you could look at it as advertising cost per SQO and then marketing cost per SQO. And so you add demand gen overhead into that. And you'd have two numbers. The demand gen one with the overhead is going to be slightly higher. Mm-hmm. Understand what your cost per SQO is in both of those. And then look at what's happening in other different places where budget's being spent to drive the same outcome. And so if there's outbound, if there's events, if there's other things, because perhaps what you want to do is you want to go back and ask for more budget and do more things, right? Because you might actually find that let's just pretend your cost per SQO blended is 2,500. Your outbound one could be $6,000.
Yeah, it is. It like the request that we got was, hey, our inbound is amazing, but now our outbound is we're having a little more tough, it's getting a little tougher.
What a lot of companies are dealing with this, which is why marketing's SQO target doubles and sales one stays flat.
Yeah.
And so, so you're going to want to figure out at some point how much you're spending across all channels.
I know on paid channels, we're spending around $40K per quarter.
Okay. $40K per quarter. Spend more. I don't know how big 130K ACV, your total addressable is probably relatively small, like not as big as a 25K ACV product. And so I don't know what the max is, but it's definitely more than 15K a month.
Yeah.
And at 130K, you have LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and search, and potentially YouTube if you have a good video. So you have all those channels available together. So like you could get to your 2x SQO target just by doing that. I'm very confident.
Just by
increasing budget and optimizing across those channels, based on what I've heard so far, I think that you could get there. Now let's answer your additional question, which is what are the other things that we should be doing, which I think is interesting. So if you're not already, like the framework that we just laid out is a great strategy to overlay on top of paid. I wish more of my customers would do something like this, because it creates over time, paid is going to hit diminishing returns. There's only so many people and you can only give them so many ads all the time across so many channels. And so over time, you need to layer on an organic strategy, ideally an organic content social strategy on including a podcast and LinkedIn.
We have one show that's killing it.
Yeah.
And now they want another show. So we're going to have two shows that it's going to be running.
Hell yeah.
So it's awesome. One of the things I remember when you were talking to Sangram from Terminus was that idea of industry roundtables focusing on, because we also have very targeted, like our mid-markets are doing well, but we really want to focus on enterprise. So and our enterprise AEs are kind of just scratching their heads. How come they're not converting as much?
Yeah, it's hard to sell to the enterprise.
So I was like, why don't we do like an industry roundtable around manufacturing or industry roundtable around finance, get those top 10, and instead of like the webinar that we normally do, hit like a in-depth discussion. It's just planning the logistics around that, which really isn't hard, but I'd be curious to see like other things that in addition to that we can start planning out.
Yeah, that's a note. I'm going to take a note there. Angelica and Megan, let's try and set up something on our own so we can know more about that, like running an industry roundtable. So we'll set something up with like 4 experts and do that on our own so that we understand more about the mechanics and things. And then the last thing that I would encourage you to think about is that you're pretty far along in paid media. You have a show like This Is Good because we can get into like real progressive stuff. There's a play for user generated content somewhere here. Like, how do you get, let's just, I don't know what you're selling, but let's just pretend you have Coca-Cola. It's probably a stretch, but like you have an enterprise company, whatever, go into your SaaS usage metrics, figure out who your power users are, and then prioritize it by like account credibility, so to speak, like how many people know the brand, right? And so you have 10 accounts and you find this person that works at this company that's very well known, and then you reach out to them, and then the offer is something that I don't fully have figured out yet, but it's like, just thinking out loud, a high level would be, hey, I noticed that you're using this feature. Actually, I've been thinking about doing this. Let me finish my thought, and then I'm going to get to this other thing. You're the best at using this specific feature out of all of we have 1,000 customers, and we are sure that you are the best at using this feature. Could you make a 20-minute video about exactly how you use it? And then you might have to put an offer. You might, you know what I mean? You might want to pay them 1,000. I don't know the dynamics of your customers, but like there's either monetary or non-monetary, something like that. That's one. But this is the thing that I've been thinking about that I've never said. And I want one of our customers to do it too. And so maybe you can pave the way. We need to create a almost like a group of SaaS power users that are tagged as something. What are you selling exactly? What's it? What category?
I'm in the corporate social responsibility space. So we're selling like corporate giving and matching.
Yeah. So I'm not good at thinking out loud. The social angels or whatever, you have some type of hashtag something, and there's a group of 50 power users that are the best, and it becomes almost like a group of people where they are proud to put that in their LinkedIn profile, and they're proud, and maybe they get extra stuff. Maybe they get gear, and they get beta features, and they get invited when you do you do a user conference, but also you do this one event when we can actually do events, and it's just these 50 people that get to go to that special event, and you get someone good. You have to figure out how to make it worth it for people, and where these 50 people become user evangelists. It's like a different version of influencers if you make it worth it for them. Like the way that I think about it is there are B2C companies where there's plenty of people that love being an ambassador, and all they want is the free t-shirt. They just want to be able, they just want to pack, like I do it for running stuff. Like I just want the brand to send me the bottle with the stuff that I drink before I run 20 miles and the stuff that I run afterwards. And I'll post about it on Instagram every once in a while. And so how do you make it worth it for them to want to be part of that group? I think that one is really interesting. I recognize that when I said that, it's not fully formed, but I'm getting close. But that one would be cool, because then you get your top customers, and you're creating, incentivizing a lot of word of mouth on social, which just there's no confusion that is the number one driver of B2B purchases. Word of mouth on social. I was in Revenue Collective Slack today. Every single question in the Ask Marketing channel is, I'm trying to buy this. I'm trying to buy this. I'm trying to buy this. Which, have you heard of this vendor? So like word of mouth between other people is what actually drives a lot of B2B purchases, and they're tagging it as organic search in their CRM.
Well, I know our business has been built on word of mouth. Like all the stuff that we've done before what I was doing, like it was funny because I remember I listened to you once, and then I checked how they ran a push on paid social lead gen ads the last quarter before I joined. 8,000 the year before, 8,152 social leads. Not one turned into an SAL. Yet they're still putting money into it. And then it was like, why are you doing this? It was a really interesting number. And it was funny because in the report, they're reporting on it's like, this is how many leads we got. I was like, that's not leads. Those are just people who happen to fill out something and they didn't really do anything. So yeah, I know.
And so it's about thinking about what are the things that you could do outside of the things that you're already doing to create more word of mouth in the market about your stuff? Like, I know that my post gets shared inside of organizations' marketing Slack channels. So a post, someone consumes it, creates word of mouth, creates awareness. And so that's one angle. You're probably already getting that done with your show in one way or another. And then it's trying to figure out what type of system do I need to create where these people kind of like do it on their own.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure this one out because that was a good idea. Some of my ideas aren't good, but I really like that one.
Thank you.
And then maybe you should pave the way because it feels like you're really far along. I congratulate you. You're doing a lot of great work, but I would definitely push you to figure out if there's more room on paid, because that's going to, if you get six months down the road and that SQO target isn't moving up, it's going to put a little pressure. And so what I recommend when that SQO target is big is you should be figuring out whether or not the stuff that you already are doing is going to get you there within the first half of the year. And so I'm figuring that stuff out for our customers right now. Like, we increase budget, and in one case, I'm finding like just pouring more money on this is not going to get us there. We need new channels. We need new approaches. We need to open up organic, and you want to know that stuff in February, not September.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Great to see you. Great question.
Thanks, Carl. That was great. I've been wanting to ask this question. It was submitted in advance. I've been keeping an eye out, but Florian has not made it live. So I'm going to ask this on his behalf. I think this is a fun one. So he provides a little bit of context. He works at a very large consulting firm, and he's been in the industry for 10 plus years. And as he's sort of been at this larger consulting company, he's always had in the back of his mind, like, oh, maybe I should leave and go to a SaaS startup. Maybe I'm missing something by being where I am. He said he's listened to the show. He's heard a lot about how, B2B SaaS companies kind of struggle to do things that often professional service firms can do well: client-focused efforts, content-led marketing, focusing on brand. But he wanted to kind of pose the question, what are some things that B2B SaaS companies do well that professional services firms might be able to learn from and adopt? Thought it was just like an interesting kind of flip of the script, if you will.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think SaaS companies do a lot of things well. Like, let's just start with that. I think if you look at it in comparison to professional services, they're way better at product. In terms of, like product innovation, I think that there's strengths there. Also, if you compare it to professional services, they're definitely better at sales. So I think those are two kind of like easy ones. And then I think that it gets more nuanced afterwards. I think that professional services firms occasionally can be better at content, but I don't think that there's a black and white answer to that. I think that's really dependent on what's going on. Those are the two ones that come to me, but I'm sure that there's more.
Yeah, I think product and innovation, and I think maybe speed, like moving quickly, but I don't know if that's completely true though across the board. For that. Anyway, that was a good one. I feel like
it was a good one. I never really thought about that before.
Yeah, we haven't got that question. I'm going to squeeze one in from Bonnie too. And then I know Matt has a follow-up from earlier. We can bring him back on.
Yeah.
So Bonnie has a general marketing question. She's hoping to get your take. She is at a very small business, and the lines between marketing and sales get blurry, and she often gets pulled into sort of both sides. She says, Chris, you've explained that it's helpful for marketers to, discover the friction in the sales process and kind of understand the sellers. But she feels like she's getting pulled in a lot of directions, and she's curious if you have any thoughts for setting boundaries between the two areas if you're in a small business, whether you have boundaries or not, and how to set them.
This is an interesting one because 8 years ago, I was getting pulled into sales, and I didn't even know it was. I didn't even recognize that it was not part of my job. right? Like I didn't really understand where over time, I get a deep respect for where the line gets drawn between marketing and sales. But at that point I didn't know. And to be honest, in a lot of companies, sales enablement is a marketing function. Right. And so I think that having some of those experiences, understanding how to do sales enablement, understanding and going on field rides with reps can provide a lot of good ammo in order to do marketing, which was mentioned in the question. And so, do I have any recommendations about where to draw the line? I think that what I would do is I would put together a marketing plan and have demonstrated impact about what you are going to get when you do that, have a projection about what you're going to do, and then try and make some type of comparison to the value of your time focused there versus somewhere else. When some of these things happen, the idea of using your opinion that what you're doing is sales and you shouldn't be doing it, especially in a small business that doesn't really understand that distinction, is probably not going to work. And so I like to, when I'm in some of these situations, I like to fall back on things that are as objective as possible. And so I'm over here helping Jimmy try and close this one deal. But if I was able to do all of these different things, then I think that we're going to get 9 customers this year. But over the past month, I've been helping Jimmy with a different brochure for every meeting. I'm building decks for people that no show on the demos. So maybe I was hoping that we could do this instead. That's a thought. And to be honest, like I understand that the context of the question was in a small business. This happens in big businesses too. A lot of marketers end up doing sales or what I would call like sales enablement or potentially sales assistant. And so I don't think this is uncommon, and I don't think it's only happening in small businesses. It typically happens with organizations that are sales driven.
One rule of thumb, if like you're having a hard time, like making sure that you're spending the right amount of time on the right activities, is like taking a step back and not worrying about whether something's like marketing or sales, and just like reminding yourself of the end goal and then making some decisions about what are the right marketing and or right sales priorities to be spending your time on. I think also it's less about like worrying about that and more about zooming out and like, what are your goals, and are you prioritizing the right things to achieve your goals? And like, doesn't really matter if it's sales or marketing. So that's just another way to think about it if you're having like a time management issue. That was kind of what I got from the question a little bit.
That was good.
All right.
Matt's back.
Matt's back. I'm unmuting you. Have you finished cooking? What's going on?
Oh no, it is. We are in the middle of it now. So my question was related to the question somebody asked earlier. It was a really thoughtful question around the product pages. It reminded me of how you've talked about product ads working pretty well for B2B SaaS on paid social. And the question was like, are those product pages that you were talking about earlier the landing page for those ads? And the call to action is effectively some form of get a demo or free trial on the landing page, not in the ad. But like, am I understanding that correctly? You're driving people to like feature pages on somebody's website, and that's converting?
So I try very hard not to have someone click and convert. I try very hard for that not to happen, because they don't actually convert into opportunities and customers at a rate that makes sense. And so I try not to. We don't put a form there. Like, our click conversions are significantly lower. And so the goal here is that they see a value proposition inside of the feed. And I mentioned, I'm not sure if you were here last week, but I pulled data. And for some customers, it's literally 100%. But for the one that I pulled, it was like 75% of the attributable demo conversions inside of Facebook for cold targeted audiences are view conversions, which means they never even clicked on the ad. They just saw the ad. And so with that insight, I try and do everything so that they never actually have to click on it. And so that change in mindset is very challenging for creatives and product marketers to actually get around, because normally you're trying to get them off to a different site, right? So it worked, and then you have to actually iterate. It takes, for some companies, it took months to get into a place where we understand how to message it, we know how to design it, and so I'm actually prioritizing clicks less. Like, we use it as a metric to understand if the messaging's working, but ultimately it's like, how many demos did that drive? I know that the audience is good. And I know that there's no garbage demos coming through our demo form on a different device. And so if the system's working and I know that it's driving demos, then I know that it's working. And so that's sort of one of the components, is that the creative inside of the feed is now my number one priority, not the landing page.
And so now with iOS 14, it's sort of like you had your shot to get the data, it kind of works, and you're going to run with it now, because like the view window is about to get shortened pretty significantly, right?
Both the windows are down to 7 days. And yes, we're under reporting by a lot in platform, but it's not nothing, right? Like, it'll probably get cut by 50%, but the attributable demo inside, now that we understand the mechanics of the channel, the attribution only helps us with which ad drove it, which audience drove it, right? And we're still getting enough of that to make the strategic changes that we want. And so does it make it harder to do our job? Yeah, it makes it harder, but I know that nobody else is doing it this way because it's so hard, right? And so that's the fact that we figured this out 8 months ago was a massive gift, because we understand all of the different nuances of it now. But to kind of recap, I don't want someone, especially for a sales-led demo, I don't want someone to click on the ad, go to the landing page, and fill out a form. I want someone to click on the ad, go to the landing page, read the stuff, leave. 3 days later, see the thing that we were talking about that's broken in their business, talk to their boss, Jane, and say, hey, Jane, I saw this thing on this ad. It looked pretty cool. You want to go check it out? Jane pulls it up on her computer because he sends her a link. Jane goes to the homepage, sees the value proposition. This looks so cool. I've been dealing with this problem for 6 months, and Jane converts. That's what I want to have happen. And that's how people actually buy stuff. But people, because they're so caught up in attribution, they never allow that to even happen. Good one, Matt.
Good one, Matt. Good luck with your dinner. For that. Well, we have two choices. Yeah, we can wrap up. There's a very long question that was submitted in advance, but I don't know. I'm just reading the room.
Yeah,
do you have some like
good,
closing thoughts, and we can kind of wrap it up for tonight? This was another good one.
Yeah, this was a good one. So just want to shout out mainly to you all, because you're content creators with us in all of this, which is awesome. You're like participating in it, which is great. This morning, I don't check this very often, but for whatever reason, I checked it this morning because I had it in like maybe like 60 days. And it's called Pod Charts. It shows rankings based on the podcast category. And we were number 32 marketing podcast this morning, which is incredible. So I want to like kind of celebrate that. You all have been, I just appreciate the participation, and I'm glad that it's helpful, and it's awesome to have you here. And for all the people listening afterwards, thank you. It's really awesome. And we're, before we started this, none of these things were even on the radar. It was just like, let's figure out how to do a podcast, which should be inspiring to a lot of people, because like, we didn't know anything about what we were doing. We just I didn't even have a microphone at the beginning. And so like, you can get started at any point, and then you just got to let it, and then you just got to work through the process. And I think that people will, people will want to be listening to your podcast and showing up to your Zoom soon. So hope that gives one person that's either listening or here a nudge to start. I know that a couple people on here already have and are doing great. And so whoever that is, let us know. And I think that is a good place to end.
Have a good week, everyone. See you next Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone. Great questions. See you next Tuesday.